Welcome to One Word Stories. My name is Joanna Zell, and I'm really happy to greet two very, very special women, two power women, actually, Astrid and Melina. We met for the very, very first time in Heidelberg, and over there I was mesmerized by their wonderful approach, combining storytelling and art. They keep offering these events called Story Up Your Artifact, and they have developed such a wonderful way to work with pieces of art, with artifacts and stories that I couldn't resist this magic. And I said, oh, these both ladies must be my guests. So a very warm welcome.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Joanna.
Joanna.
So just a very, very short input, because Astrid brings actually a fantastic expertise in art history and also literature. She has got a PhD in art history, and combined with literature is a very wonderful, huge asset. And Melina brings a fantastic experience from the marketing and IT field. So this makes them a dream team. And right now I'm handing over to you how you actually work with storytelling practices and what makes it unique.
Oh, thank you, Joanna. Yeah, so maybe I should just give a start. So to start with, so my name is Astrid, and together with Melina, I co-founded Story Atelier as a non-for-profit workshop, story workshop. Working with stories is first and foremost working with people and trusting the process. So we are not there to produce perfect artifacts that have to be published and on the market or anything. So this is a very important thing we want to state here, I guess, in the way we work with stories. So maybe I hand over to Melina at this point before we dive more into the story work.
Yeah, thank you, Astrid. Well, first of all, I didn't work with IT. I was in marketing and design. So I can say a lot about IT because I work with IT companies, but I'm not from the IT field per se. I am a trained communication manager, facilitator, and storytelling expert. But actually, these are just ornamental titles. So what I really like to do is move between cultures like a dancer and to dive for pearls within each culture. And in my private life, I'm mastering the art of multilingual dialogue and intercultural conflict resolution each day, because I'm actually half French, half Latvian, from a family who spoke Russian, French, Latvian, German, English at home. And now I'm married to an Armenian from Istanbul, which make it everything even more complicated. So knowing more than one social pattern and living with sometimes even very conflicting ideologies made me very flexible in my mind, and it helped me to find very creative solutions. But first and foremost, it helped me and helps me to be much more open to the unknown. And what I experienced is that humor and seeing the beauty in each culture first is a very good entrance in a discussion or a workshop, because life is hard enough as it is. And this is, I think, what I like to bring to our work. It's the beauty and the ease, because where would we get the strength to tackle things in our work?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. It's really exactly this, dream team I'm emphasizing, because when I relate to this, what you have said, Astrid, that this human factor is so important, that it's about process of sharing stories. And right now also your comments, your insights, Melina, that it's so much about beauty of the process, and so much about the lightness, a certain lightness, a sense of humor, and also building bridges between many, many cultures. it's also really this huge, huge value of stories that we can kind of escape of this generalizations. We can kind of escape the danger of a single story when we hear these multiple stories. As you have just said, Melina, you coming from a very, very multicultural background, also right now having the family with still more cultural influences, it makes it very, very complex. How does it actually influence your work?
Well, it kind of influences everything I do in my work, because even if it's not about culture per se, but about a very specific topic, I tend to look from my complex glasses that I'm used to, and to see the beauty in things first, and to start. And, you know, I would say in every workshop and every work that we do, the entrance into that workshop for the participants is very, very important. How do you invite people into that space? And if you do so in a very light way, and you talk about culture or a very heavy topic, for example, or an issue, it's easier to talk about it. So I would say that is something that influences my work, the way I live my life, and the multicultural complexity. But Astrid, maybe you also have another glass on when you get into our workshops.
Well, there are different things. I mean, first and foremost, since we are working with art, for example, with the Story Up Your Artifact projects, is also an invitation to take a piece of art we are all looking at from different perspectives. So it's really lived multi-perspectivity, and also from different cultural lenses. And you more than anyone know that, Joanna, because you do that you too with your vis-a-vis workshop. So it's also this training of multi-perspectivity, accepting one another's, and it's always really interesting to see how the same piece of art generates different stories from people, be it fictional or biographical. And so this is an important thing.
Well, using an artifact, I would say we mostly use it to evoke a certain emotion or a thought, also as an entrance door to share later on a very personal story. And I would say that art can not only be fun, and we all enjoy art, of course, but it can help you become even be a better observer, and therefore a better listener, because you have to listen to your own thoughts, to your own feeling, you have to listen to your body. And through that, you kind of zoom into what your story is. And in the same moment, you can also listen to others and their perspective of that piece of art that evokes a certain emotion and a story. And then you zoom out and look at the stories as a bigger picture, right? So, yeah, it's a very powerful tool. And as I said, art is enjoyable for anybody, and it can bring serenity to a very heavy topic, or sobriety when it's time to stop being silly. But I would say that's precisely why art is a perfect mediator between worlds, especially when you work with groups that deal with heavy topics like, you name it, racism, feminism, climate change. And again, cheerfulness and ease is really seriously underestimated sentiment. I would even say that cheerfulness is a serious business, because it leads not only to serenity, but it's also leading to subversion, right? So all of a sudden, something changes, right?
Definitely. And what I really love about your description is actually that it brings us to this momentum when we are non-judgmental. Because of course, everybody can interpret exactly the same piece of art in completely different way. So it gives us this freedom to express our opinion, to express our perspective. And this is also the beauty with starting with an artifact, with piece of art, because per se, everybody has got the right to see it in completely different way. And right now I know why at the very beginning when I introduced yourself, Melina, I also emphasized the IT issue. Sorry for that. It came to my head because, or it came on my mind because of your fantastic idea to actually offer the Story Up, your artifact workshops, not only face to face, but also in the digital space. And you have also done lots of digital projects, digital storytelling projects as well. So it was a little bit of the shortcut in my brain. And Melina is also, you know, the person who knows IT
She's the
Yeah.
IT girl.
100%, exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
and
it's true. So far, we've been doing it live with classes with kids at school. So this was a fantastic experience, feeling them like free to like invent stories and, you know, not being judged and feel the flow of imagination and thereby learning still something. It was about Germanic and Roman times. And we also did it online for adults, which was a very intimate, nice experience. And so this is one of our big goals and projects for 2023. It's to make it a regular offering, yeah, online. So stay tuned.
yeah,
It's evolving. Yeah.
There's
yeah.
more to come. Yeah.
But
I'm really very looking forward to.
yeah, but it's maybe it brings me to a point that I feel is very important because we tend in our works to be either working with youth or with adults. I think beginning of last year or the year before, we started really, or maybe it was the pandemic, I don't know. We really started really thinking how important it is that the worlds of young people, of adults, of this intergenerational communication, intersectoral cooperation gets enhanced. And our dream is not only with Story Up Your Artifact, but also with our school project, Morgenmacher, the makers of tomorrow, to get bridges of those worlds. And what better mean or tool than to use story? So with Morgenmacher, for instance, we decided to use as well the power of futures literacy, so the imagination from the future, to use design thinking, to invite young people, so to pupils in school, to come to connect to their intrinsic interests and their emotions, and to help them to facilitate their engagement with the world and the challenges of sustainability in a very hands-on and creative way. And storytelling here helps really to overcome fear-driven thoughts and doubts, to feel empowered to act, so to work on narratives that bring you in positive action mode, and for instance in a true connection to what you feel, to what you think. And also it's a door to build the connections to the other sectors and to bring people from different horizons to, like on the artifact. I mean, as what you do with an artifact, you can do with any type of issue, is to bring the multiple perspectives, to look at it, at the challenge, and to work on solutions. We are not the only ones to think like that. I mean, there are already wonderful projects out there in the world where art is and design thinking and futures thinking is being integrated in also intergenerational projects. And this is a place that I feel our energy, our heart is going towards. And I think I must say the last 2 years with COVID must have also impacted a little bit in that direction at some point. Yeah.
Yes, definitely. And you also keep emphasizing a very, very important dynamics, because many people, when they hear the term storytelling, they tend to think about telling the stories from the past. Nevertheless, we can work with stories in a very, very constructive way when we work also with future scenarios. Yeah, and also stories we imagine that can take place. How does it actually work for you also, you know, in the Story Up Your Artifact context? Because I remember your events. I experienced it 3 times, twice face-to-face, this third time online, are really game changers. Whenever I leave your workshop, I feel so energized. I get so many ideas. How do you make this magic happen? What is your secret?
Well, if I may, Astrid,
Yeah.
we are true believers of Boy's assertion that every human being is an artist, and that art or an artifact or an object or a place that surrounds you and combined with the practice of storytelling will maybe not make you a professional art critique. It will probably not make you a professional architect or whatever the topic is. But the practice of storytelling combined with something can make you a very competent observer and storyteller. And only the feeling of being able to produce something is so important for people. And when you do that with a multiple different tools like embodiment or writing, it's very empowering for people to be able to produce something. And on top of that, you have observers, you have people looking at you and being very appreciative for what you give. So I think it's the combination of both that makes this energy.
Yeah, the community of observers is very important. I think part of the magic, Joanna, is, and how we also did it from the very first time in Heidelberg up to now, is associative thinking. Basically, the magic happens as soon as you start to combine two things that on the first gaze don't obviously belong together. So why I think you picked the chair in Heidelberg.
Yeah, I did.
How does the chair relate to the hero's journeys step you were, I think, in the, I don't know if it was the threshold you had or something else. So how do you combine this? Yeah. And you have the support for your story and you support the stories of others. And one story inspires the other. And all of a sudden, yeah, those artifacts become the pillar of a common body. And also to relate to a very recent experience, the three of us, we have been in a workshop recently in Italy at the Basis, and it was given by a very dear and common friend of ours, Yanis Angelis, whom you also had in your one-word story.
Yeah.
Of course. And so basically what happened here again was how do you describe the texture of a scent? So you have one sense, which is smelling, that you combine with another sense, which is touching. And what do you do out of it? So, and the fact every one of us, we were like, I don't know, 25 people in the room, had a different story, a different association. But what happened was it unleashed a whole flow of imagination. The group was like one body connected through this one smell. It was cardamom.
Yeah.
And the multiplicity of those texture stories. Yeah. So this is how the magic happens. I'm a very strong believer of associative thoughts, and as one of the most famous examples in the literature history is, of course, the little cake, the Madeleine, by Marcel Proust. He dips it into a tea, and what happens is, I don't know how many thousand pages
exactly of memories from
memories that unfold from this little sensual experience.
Yeah, me too. I even everything about synesthesia, when you're able to see sounds, or when you're able to, when you play with that, because I cannot see sounds, I cannot hear colors, but there are people who do. So to play with that a little bit, it really helps you to shift not only the perspective of a story, but it helps you to shift how you feel about it. It's really interesting.
because again, it's completely different to read about something like that and completely different experiencing. And this is also something I guess is so transformational about working with art and stories, that you simply go beyond your cognitive understanding. You need to experience it. You cannot really just read about it and, oh wow, yes, interesting, or yes, I can imagine it's transformational. You need to go through the process. And I guess this is also very, very important in many contexts. We have touched upon this understanding across cultures, but also healing. Yeah, this is also something that we are aware of, that it can be very, very powerful approach in the healing process.
And here I would like to draw the loop back to what Melina said before about lightness and the cheerfulness. Because with aesthetics, the first emotional door you open is one of pleasure of. You say also, like in German you speak of Kunstgenuss. So whenever you observe or you look at art, there is something like something that you how do you say to genießen? That you enjoy. Huh?
It's not the same in English.
No, it's not really the same meaning.
And but then this is the first level, and this opens, or can open the door then to very personal, deep experiences, as we said before, open up to difficult topics, talking about identity, about racism, about psychological safety, about natural destruction, whatever. You can work on difficult topics, but through this entrance door, it makes it much more easy. And it's a very important experience we made since the very beginning of Story Atelier, because in our early times, we were mostly doing the digital storytelling workshops, where we were really in a group process for many days, crafting a story. And we have never been therapists. And it was not our purpose to heal or to be in a therapeutical work. But staying on the level of the story, allowing people to bring it outside themselves and to craft it, was a process that had healing value without entering in a therapy or
I can tell you a story about that, which if I think about it, I'm still having goosebumps. We were working with people who had dementia, and there was this very cute man called Josef. He had really difficulties to put the story in a right, like find the right thread of that story, so we could help him with that. But what was happening was that he was telling on and on and on every day. And even all the other patients around told us he's telling the story every day, many, many times. And we are still in contact with some of them. So what happened, we were able to help him to tell the story about the passing of his wife. And then we watched the movie. I think I saw 1 or 2 tears in his eyes. And I talked to another participant of that workshop later. And I asked how Josef was. And she was telling me, Josef is not telling the story anymore. So this was like, he got it off his chest, and he was able to gift this story to the world. And at that moment, he could let go. He was free of that story.
It was liberating, yeah.
And I was, when I think about it, I still have like goosebumps everywhere. I wonder what he's doing right now, Josef.
Yeah. Amazing story. Thank you for sharing. So when I think of, such stories, it's also, of course, very, very important to, again, be conscious how we deal also with stories that have got such a huge impact on us. And there are some stories we keep telling, and sometimes it's always, good to reflect upon this issue. What stories should we actually keep telling? And what stories should we stop telling, just like Joseph did, because it's also this moment of liberating from something that we maybe see as a burden. Yeah. And what stories should we actually continue telling? Because there are definitely stories like that. So my question is, what was actually such one word and the story behind that was playing a very important role for you during these turbulent times? And maybe I can start asking you, Melina, first.
Yeah, well, my word would be reduction. Reduction to the essential. Because while COVID hit, we were living in Yerevan, the capital city of Armenia. And, when you live abroad, you want to dive into the culture, you want to learn from the locals. All that was not possible anymore. We could not invite people over, especially at the very beginning of COVID. So we decided that we would move to the countryside with another family who also had 2 kids. So our kids could interact together and had more fun. And we got from the capital city, not being able to go outside, to the countryside with beautiful mountains, lush green fields, very simple rural people, but a very, very free and large view outside. So this was really, really nice. And what happened then is that everything was really reduced because where we went, the place is called Gosh. You only had a very tiny little market, or you could go to the farmer to get milk, fresh milk, which was really a novum for me. But you had electricity blackouts regularly. Sometimes we didn't have hot water. But what happened was that we could concentrate on the essential and get into really heartwarming conversations pretty quickly with the locals. And what happened is that we were more receptive to sensual impressions. And not having many options sometimes makes you really creative. So if you cannot have the pasta bolognese, you have to use what you have, right? And it was really a very important learning for the kids as well. And I love cooking with what is left in the fridge, which is such a creative and fun experience to have, even with the kids.
Wonderful.
So it's reduction.
Wonderful. Thank you.
That's
Thank you so
great.
much for sharing. What about you, Astrid?
Well, my word would be sensuality. During the pandemic, and I think like many other people too, I rediscovered my senses in a very enhanced way. Listening to quiet streets, gardening more. I don't know, since there was no traffic, the colors seemed brighter. So I felt like I felt more urgency to hug and touch my children, to hold them tight. So since we were less in contact with other people, we even more so were aware of what it meant to have physical contact and to touch a skin, to touch a texture. Observing in the woods, listening to birds. So I also intensified my meditation practice, tried to feel into the body, feel rooted, did more art practice like painting or playing music. This is something that I really try to keep with me, even though the times have changed again. But for me, it's it's really important also to consciously try to feel into my senses also when I'm trying to make mindful decisions or to understand something, to understand that everything's connected. So I don't understand only with my brain. And yeah, and it goes beyond the just so-called gut feeling or something, to experience more of those senses.
Yeah, I remember your art project from that time when you were also drawing or painting this
Mhm.
the details from the stamps. I loved
Yes.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I still have one unfinished here. I want to continue it at some point. Mm,
Wonderful.
mm.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing how you work with stories, how you combine working with storytelling practices and pieces of art. As you have mentioned, you work with these practices in so many contexts. Whoever comes to your workshops leaves them really transformed in this positive way and also enriched. I think this is the first word that comes to my head when I think of your
Oh,
yes your events, whatever
thank
you
you.
offer to the world. Thank
Thank you,
you very,
Joanna.
very much for joining. So it's
That's
always a
awesome.
great pleasure to spend time with you. I could
Yeah.
Thank you. With you
keep
too, Joanna.
keep
Thank you,
talking for
Joanna.
hours. Thank you so much.